Hello, my name is Paul Michaud, and I'm the CEO of Proceve. In this video, we're actually going to talk about a key concept in project management called traceability. So, the single biggest cause of project failure in every study I've ever seen by the Project Management Institute and others is an inability to manage changing objectives and requirements. They get kind of grouped together, but at the end of the day, if you look at the data and the results of most surveys, the fact that objectives and requirements change over the life of a project, regardless of what it is, whether it's a slight change in the design of a building when you're building it from what the architect originally envisioned, you get into construction and you realize something needs to change and you need to deal with it. In a software project, in the world that I live in, we have a set of requirements, usually very loose requirements and objectives at the start of a project. And by the time we get into it, they're changing constantly, being refined, etc. And we need to make sure that we understand everything that's impacted by those changes and we can actually do something about it. If we don't know what's impacted by the changes, then we have absolutely no hope of ever being able to manage those changes and make sure they reflect in every aspect of the project that they need to reflect in. So, before we can manage change, we have to be able to understand all the relationships between the various moving parts within our project. And this is where traceability comes in. So traceability is a way to capture and monitor the relationships between the various artifacts within a project. So in the case of software, this is the relationships between corporate objectives, requirements, the tasks that implement the requirements, the tests that test them, the issues against the requirements, and so on. If we can't capture all of those relationships, then we simply cannot manage change as it is going to happen. It's inevitable. So let's look at an example of traceability. Imagine a corporate project and you're a business, you have a particular objective you're trying to achieve. So we've got a stated objective. Based on that objective, we may implement some kind of program or project that we hope will implement a bunch of steps and take a bunch of steps or create something that we believe will help us achieve the business objective. In that case, that program or project relates to that objective. In addition, within the program or project, we may define a bunch of requirements, right? If it's a software project and the objective is to build a piece of software to do X, we're going to end up defining a whole lot of requirements that we believe the software needs to encompass that help us to achieve X, whatever X is. The requirements are going to get refined over time with additional details. So we might have child requirements, we might have different diagrams, we can have all kinds of details that might be further refinements of the requirement. All of those additional details are specific types of relationships, right? We need to know that the child requirement relates to the parent requirement. We need to know that the requirement relates to the diagram and depends on it. These are all different types of traceability relationships. In addition, the requirement relates back to the objective because those details in the requirement refine the broad objective statement. As we go about doing our program or project, we might have various conversations, and I need to know that the conversation discusses the requirement, right? And so, in addition, we could have conversations about other things, tasks, tests, issues, you name it. It doesn't matter. We can have them. But we need to know what those conversations relate to. We need to know that this requirement has a conversation about it. And if we have a conversation, we need to know what the conversation relates to. We need to know in both directions. We can have tasks. The task implements the requirement, right? And the task itself could have additional tasks that it depends on, and that has a relationship from the task to the ones it depends on that is another traceability type. It's another relationship type. Again, if this was a software project, we might have a task, we implement a bunch of software, and the result of that task is a bunch of source code that resulted from the task. Again, another linkage and another traceability type relationship. When we do software or any other type of project, in a lot of cases, we have to test things. Um, you know, so what's the test testing? Well, normally the test is testing the requirement in a software project. Or if we run a test in a building or something, we're sort of looking at it going, does the building actually meet the design requirements? Does the building meet building code? So essentially that's defining the requirement, testing against the requirements again. The test also tests the specific implementation that happened in the task. And in this case, that it means testing the source code that resulted from the task. Finally, I can't run the test until the task is done. Therefore, the test depends on the task. Finally, I run my tests and maybe I find a problem. Well, I log an issue. Well, that issue results from the test, right? And so here, even in a simple example with one requirement, a couple of dependencies on that, a dependent task, you can see every one of these light white lines represents a relationship that ultimately traces back to the requirement or the objective. So if that requirement changes, right, that one requirement, potentially the task changes, the source code changes, the tests have to change. The issue may or may not be relevant anymore. Maybe the issue was related to a specific version of the requirement and we have a bug, but the requirements changed and now the issue is no longer relevant. But we can't tell what is impacted from a change in that requirement or a change from that objective up above if we can't capture all of the relationships that occur between all the different pieces. So inside Proceve software, as I said, we have a robust mechanism that we can continuously extend as necessary, and as we hear from our users what they want to see from a relationship standpoint, and we're able to capture all of these relationships between virtually everything inside our system. And in time, we'll be able to provide different ways to people that they can actually determine what the impact is. When one item changes, they'll be able to see everything that's impacted in their broader program or project based on that change. But it starts with being able to capture all of the relationships in a traceability context.